Good morning, and welcome to this Palm Sunday, Passion Sunday, this day that's the entry into Holy Week. I've been thinking quite often recently about the use of words, as those who know me know, and one of them that I keep hearing is the word kinetic. And it seems to have become a word that describes this sort of bombastic, to borrow a phrase, but this military response to things. Its kinetic response is about how to do bombs and bullets in fearsome force, implied so intentionally to a situation, and often coupled with that totally impossible coupling phrase of surgical precision, as if something exploding and destructive can be equated somehow, if used correctly, to a scalpel in the hands of a surgeon trying a procedure that admittedly causes some destruction, but that is intended ultimately to heal. Kinetic. We are forging a kinetic response to the situation with, take your pick, of countries or places or things. Kinetic. Well, it is about bodies and things in motion. I never took physics because I was a loser at math, but I was a dancer once. And I understood that kinetic was about energy in space that moves against something else with force and produces, I think, what we call work, change, movement. Movement that ends up in some ways inciting, exciting, transforming. Kinetic movement. And I get to this today because Palm Sunday, Passion Sunday, they used to be different, but they've become molded into one in our Western church now, is a feast or a celebration. And not celebration in the clap happy sense, but a deep celebration of the kinetic, the work of God on the experience of the human. And we can see it in two different ways in the events of this day and the days surrounding it. The energy of movement forward, the energy of the explosive that cannot be contained, not a bomb, but of the human spirit, and the energy that is the reverse of what we know of energy. The vacuum, the black hole, so to speak, that seeks to suck the progress and the transformation and to try desperately to contain it until it ends up destroying itself. That reverse movement just doesn't work. It may work in the short term, but there's no future in it because our God is a kinetic God. And the holy drives all things. And all it is able to will unto life forward. So the kinetics of this Sunday start in Mark's Gospel, at least, which a lot of us are reading in Jericho, not so far from Jerusalem. And start with a blind man interrupting the progress of Jesus and his disciples, calling out to be healed, and Jesus stands still. The walk, the forward, it's interrupted. But only apparently, because the blind man sees and joins the group, the crowd, the friends, the disciples, the hangers-on, all following Jesus to what they imagine may be glory in Jerusalem, all drawn in the energy, drawing on the energy, but not stopping it. And even see this pause with the blind man. It's not really a pause or a stop. It's another transforming, energetic moment of salvation's progress. There is no stopping it. They continue. This driving force of Jesus and all who are following him to Bethany, to a colt never ridden, which is commandeered and allows Jesus to mount it. Cloaks are spread, branches are thrown, hosannas are shouted. The energy is mounting, driven not by crowds, although it may appear so, but by this internal combustion, this power brewing in Jesus' own heart and soul as he picks up more, as he descends the Mount of Olives and arrives at the temple, and there creates a whirlwind of the Spirit. It's like a divine version of, I think it's called torque. He spins everything around on its axis. The axis, which in fact at its depth and reality is the holy. But now the power, or the supposed power, the apparent power, the temporary power, and yet the destructive power of the vacuum, of that reversal of energy begins to play. Because those with power, those whose fortunes are at risk, those who have thus far been on the fringes of this Jesus movement, and other movements as well, wondering, plotting, side-dissing, accusing, trying to figure out how to stop what they see. Jesus, the crowds, the power, the transformations that keep on coming of those who are blind, who are lame, outcast, poor, marginal, heretics, Samaritans, who are unclean, who are women. They, the ones, they have seen the transforming power. They have seen the kinetics of grace and of love, redefining everything that they thought stood for order and for power, and they have to act now. But they can't move forward because that would mean moving into change. That would mean moving with the transformation. And that would mean the loss of what used to be. What sustained them and their position. They can only withdraw into the darkness and into themselves, into the bastions of what used to be, that they mistakenly think still exists, just as the powers of our day think used to is the same as now. What used to be, and still appears to be so, the temple structure, the stratification of society, the privilege of the organized state and the organized worship system, collaboration with the oppressors. If they can get rid of this one troublesome Jew, they can get it all back. The forward energy will have been sucked into the system's mechanisms, and all will be again in stasis, the way they mean it to be for as long as they can keep it to be. knowing that what is static is what is dead. They don't get it. They ask now in Mark, by what authority Jesus does what he does, and Jesus doesn't have to answer because it's clear. It is kinetic. It can only be about the kinetic, the uncontainable, revolutionary power and grace of a God who is uncontainable and whose life has to spill out, turn things upside down, raise up the lowly, make the poor sit among kings, drive sickness and death into the ground, and bring up life wherever it dares and wants to spring. This experience that we have as the beginning of Holy Week, but in time, in real time, stretched over days. It is about unstoppable, unfathomable movement. The movement of Jesus is into Jerusalem, the seat of what presented itself as power. The movement of the crowds is toward what might give life and hope, or there has been a famine of the experience of redemption. The movement of the disciples is that of all of us who are flawed, but still formed by the desire to find, to experience, to be, and to be changed by the touch of a God who is both within us so intimately and yet sometimes seems so inexplicably unbelievable. The movement of the authorities is a recession. It is, in many ways, what sin is, which in this case is the withdrawal of our being and beliefs into a circle of imagined power that protects and contains, that seems to preserve what we have known and been comforted by, and which supports the delusion that we can indeed overcome the forces of life so strong that death cannot contain them, let alone that we puny mortals can control them. We puny mortals subject to death can control them. And now, today, experience is joined to that about which we read and which we remember, because it is also kinetic, and it is also about the grace and energy of God. The movement now is of all of those in parts of the world who are seeking. At borders drawn in pencil or ink by the powers that be on deserts, on rivers and mountains of the earth. The movement of all of those who hunger for bread, who thirst for justice, who long for freedom, who are desperate for healing, who seek mercy, who move themselves, even though sometimes halt and lame, toward the light of the truth that calls them, against any barriers that those who wish to defy or deny the truth construct. Those who seek mercy, who in short belong to God. They do not hold palms or olive branches. In many ways, in the kinetics of this age, of today, of our experience, if we will see its reality. They do not hold the palms or the branches. They are the palms and the olive branches. They have been grown to be the acknowledgement, the reason for, the sign, and also the movement itself. The movement not just of the crowds or of the disciples or even of this whole creation, but to be the movement, the kinetics of the king and the kingdom itself. Let us watch. Let us believe. Let us receive change and join ourselves. And that will be the Hosanna that does not end on Good Friday. Let it be so.